Let's talk homes and mortgages. This morning's existing home sales dropped by 18%, but some estimates had it for as deep as a 20% drop. I want to bring in our first guest. Jeffrey Taylor is a co-founder and managing director at Digital Risk, the nation's largest provider of mortgage risk, compliance, and transaction technology. So, Jeffrey, what do you and your team see right now in an economy where apparently housing is, I don't know, I get mixed signals. It's like we get these numbers this morning, but then Redfin says their sales are back to where they were at the beginning of the year. What are we to make of this?
Yeah, Oliver, thanks for having me. What an unbelievable period that we're living in right now. Again, 3 months ago when you looked at, we were heading into the biggest refinance boom we have probably seen in 20 years. And like you said, over the course of the last 2 months, what we're really seeing is two waves. One, you still have a very strong refinance market. And I'll explain that in a few minutes exactly what that looks like. But right now, the market also is going back and forth. The purchase market, it's kind of come to a stall a little bit because getting people in to be able to do appraisals, actually that physical interaction of buying houses has stalled things. But I think as we're coming out of that, we're getting a little bit more clarity on the vaccine, getting past the pandemic a little bit. I do expect that later on this year, going into next year, we could see the purchase market really start to pick up because of the incredibly historically low interest rates. The other part, though, that we have to deal with, which is within the last 4 weeks, is this whole forbearance issue. We have over 4 million Americans that have opted into forbearance in the course of the last 6 weeks. Now, if you have opted into forbearance, there's two types of situations you could be in. We have 18% of people who opted in actually made their April and May payments. So they might have taken it as an insurance policy. If those people want to go ahead and refinance, they can because they're current. If somebody took forbearance and missed a payment or two, what they then have to do is basically make 3 current payments. Then they'll be able to refinance their loan into what are historically low interest rates. So you've got this weird dynamic of trying to manage what would be a default cycle and on the other hand, the lowest interest rates we've ever had. That would be a huge boost for the housing market.
Jeffrey, to that point about forbearance, this morning article on Bloomberg talking about delinquencies soaring by the most on record in April. 1.6 million is the data that they cite. And I guess the argument here is, well, those will eventually get paid or they will be able to have leniency by the lenders. I mean, what's going to happen here for those that are already in delinquency? Are they just counting on getting their job back?
So that's a great point. So let's talk about what happens to those loans. At some point, the forbearance program, they can be in it for anywhere from between 3 months up to 12, depending upon extensions. And the way the forbearance would end up working is at the point that they're able to come back and resume making payments, again, when they get their job back, the majority of those loans, you're going to take the payments that you missed and simply add them on to the end of the loan. So for instance, if we had 5 years left on the mortgage, we missed 5 payments, the person gets another job again, and they're in a position to be able to pay their mortgage again, you're in essence adding 5 months on to the end of that loan or the total amount if you were to refinance it back. So that's where Americans are really going to have an opportunity to get their feet underneath them and start getting back to making their home price, their mortgage payments when they actually have the financial ability to do so.
Jeffrey, home builders, ITB, the ETF tracking this group, is up 2.2% today after the print this morning. Seems to suggest that there is this trend of housing shortage that still remains even after all the building that was done over the past year. Is that still the case? Are the home builders still going to have plenty to do?
It really is. So, Digital Risk itself, we are the 7th largest lender on behalf of others providing mortgages. So I will tell you, especially in the home builder space, it was already an all-time tight supply for them to be able to build houses. So coming out of it right now, you're seeing home builders like Lennar getting extremely creative as far as getting loans closed by having drive-up closings. The land, we're not creating more land in the U.S. So as the supply chain was broken for a couple of months, continues to get fixed, yes, you're seeing it's going to be a very, very strong road ahead for the home builders. I really like Lennar and Pulte in that conversation as far as going forward. So very bullish on the home builders.
Jeffrey, appreciate the insight here on a pretty confusing group, but right now it seems like on net adding up to positive signs. Mortgage apps continue to climb, purchase activity increasing, and this morning's response to the ugly existing home sales print suggests the market here is okay with it. Jeffrey's a co-founder and managing director at Digital Risk. Looking forward to continuing this conversation. Good insight here into the mortgage and housing space.